They were the forgotten kids, the ones without a home, abused and ignored. They were children from Vigo County who, for one reason or another, had to leave their parents' custody. They all ended up at a place on the east side of Vigo County, Glen Home. The historic center for kids opened all the way back in 1903. At its height, it was respected all over the community as a place of shelter for children with troubled backgrounds. But it closed in 1979 under very different circumstances. Years of building decay and questionable management led to its closure. But last June, exactly 40 years later, we got word that something even more sinister may have been tied to the home's final days. In a special More to the Story, we launch an investigation that would span nearly a year. In it, we uncover the grim and heartbreaking stories of adults who say they're still dealing with the terrors of abuse. Now, it's important to point out some of the details and language in this story may not be suitable for all ages.
I could spot an abuse situation a mile away. I could spot an abused kid a mile away.
Alice Whalen Barrett can look back on her career as a trained clinical therapist with pride. But her journey started on the other side of the system.
I like to say we were so poor the mice didn't even come because there was no food to even chomp on.
Alice was one of 8 children. Her father was mentally ill, and she says her mother was abusive. Things hit a boiling point when she says she saw her mother beating her younger sister.
And I stood there, and the kids are all screaming and they're crying. And I just said, Mom, if you want to beat somebody, here I am. Damn if she didn't take me up on it.
A neighbor reported seeing the abuse, and the county took away the children. Alice and her siblings landed here at what used to be the Glen Home. It was supposed to be a safe space, but instead, Alice says, this is where she came face to face with pure evil.
I close my eyes and I'm back there. The first day I got there was terrifying.
To her, it was an orphanage that quickly began to feel like a prison, especially once Alice learned the rules.
Try to keep an eye on my brothers and sisters, but we were in different cottages. The rule was made clear up front. You do not associate with your brothers and sisters.
But she says the worst was still to come.
He was a mean son of a bitch. He was a wolf in sheep clothing.
Reverend Ivell Lane was the superintendent of Glen Home from 1969 to 1978. He was also a United Methodist minister with a wife and kids. The Terre Haute community respected him, but Alice says they didn't see the true Ivell Lane.
If you do question my rules, there will be consequences. I'm the Reverend Ivell Lane, and you are white trash from the other side of the tracks. Do you get me?
She says the abuse started not long after she got there. It was emotional, mental, and physical.
I think I've kissed every stair in the main cottage, in the main building. There were three floors. I hit every wall. I know I hit every wall.
But she says it didn't end there.
He held his hand over my face, and he raped me. And he choked me, and he beat on me, and he told me what a slut I was.
Alice says Lane sexually abused her several times for years. She told us of one specific instance that was difficult to hear.
And he picked up his gun, and I said, "You son of a bitch," and I just started cursing him. And he said, "You hate me?" And I said, "You bet." And he handed me the gun. He said, "Here, if you hate me so much, shoot me." And you know what, Rondrell? I almost pulled the trigger.
But she didn't, in part because she was thinking of her siblings and how they'd manage with the sister in jail. She'd hoped they weren't going through the same things, but she'd later find out her fears were true.
When I was about 16, that's when the actual sex started. It went till after the place closed.
You just heard from Judy Atwood, Alice's younger sister. We tracked her down all the way in Arizona. She says she's still learning to cope with her time at Glen Home.
Over the past 20 years or so, I've gone through some really bad depression and have been suicidal several times. I've spent some time in getting psychiatric help.
It's a family trauma that Alice truly believed meant nothing to the outside world.
When we were at Glen Home, Nobody gave a damn. Some of the kids told caseworkers, and they either were told, shut up, we don't want to hear it, it didn't happen, you're a liar.
We were unable to find the specific caseworkers to whom she's referring, but we found the person who would have been their boss. 40 years later, we tracked down a county leader who believes Alice and Judy 100%.
He was a pastor and doing everything the opposite of what a pastor should be doing.
Glenn Cardwell was the director of Vigo County's welfare department starting in 1977. Basically, he was Lane's boss. He says he knew he had to get Lane out, but doing it was the difficult part. Meanwhile, Alice says she continued to live in hell.
I wanted him out of our lives. I wanted to be able to sleep without worrying that he was going to crawl into my bed. I wanted to be able to be normal.
Reverend Ivell Lane died in 2008. His family denies any wrongdoing on his part. Coming up in the next part of our special investigation, the man who says he was Lane's boss is speaking out for the very first time. Hear how he says he believed the children in the Glenn home were in trouble. It's an interview 40 years in the making.